Good afternoon, Mr. Somani.
Good afternoon, Sujata. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I think some of our speakers have already come on board, so maybe you'd like to meet them.
I'm seeing them.
Good afternoon, Dr. Foles.
Dr. Wolz, good afternoon and welcome.
Hello, Mr. Somani. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. We'd love to hear from you on the middle stand. That's important for us.
We have Mr. Jung from Kotra. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Actually, I'm from Kita, K-I-T-A.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm
sorry
so
about that.
I'm so sorry. My mistake.
Not at all. Not at all. Almost everybody gets confused by it.
Sir, Somani sir, you are on mute. If you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah. Seriously, Namaskar. We got to know that you're joining today. It's so nice.
Namaskar, Mr. Somani, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jain.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Welcome to this seminar. Thank you for joining.
We also have Dr. Wim Konan.
I can't see him, yeah?
Dr. Miss Wim Non Kang.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wimon Khan from Office of SMEs Promotion, Thailand.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and thank you for joining.
You're very welcome.
We also have Mr. Ter Leong Leng from
Yes.
Yeah, hi.
Mr.
Pleased to meet you guys. Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Somani.
Good afternoon, Renuka. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Nice to see everybody on the screen. Sujata, has everybody joined, or should we wait?
We still have one speaker left.
Okay, so we can wait for another 5 minutes and then
Yeah, I think Mr. Vinod Sharma is yet to join.
Yeah,
I will invite you, Mr. Somani, then we can start.
That's, I think that's Vinod, I think. Vicky Electronics.
Yes, I think he's signing in.
Yeah. Hi, Vinod, how are you?
How are you, Mr. Somani?
Good to see you.
Nice to see you looking all dapper as always.
Can't say that. It's, you never know what's beneath.
Great. Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, wonderful to see you. Good afternoon. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Tell me when to start, Sujata?
We still have about 6 minutes.
Take another 2-3 minutes, then we can start.
Yeah, I think we have another 7 minutes to be precise as far as 2:30 is concerned.
That's right, yes.
You started looking more like Telly Savalas more and more as I see you, know.
Sorry, like who?
Telly Savalas, you know that guy.
Yeah, I'm using my specs more and more actually. So.
How are things otherwise, you know?
April was excellent, as it, for all of us, at least in the electronics manufacturing business. May, June has been a dampener, I mean, as was expected. July is beginning to pick up. So I do hope that by September, we'll be back on track.
Second quarter is looking promising, I think, right?
Yeah. I'm beginning to sound more and more like my marketing guys, where the next quarter is always going to be great.
Yeah, that's right. Blame it on the future.
Absolutely.
But I think these times are quite challenging now. But I don't know how the world is opening up, exports and everything. But I think this is also an opportunity that we should look at as to say how we can all cooperate to find an ecosystem within the SME groups and companies and managements, so that there is a greater trade and also facilitation as far as technology or collaborations are concerned. It's something that we look forward to. It's an opportunity available.
And especially from an MSME perspective, I feel that there is so much changing around us. You know, the shift in geopolitics, in supply chains, in the need for us to become more competitive, global scale. So if you're not doing that, it's not a luxury that you can say I'm happy with what I have. You know, that doesn't exist. So I think the need to sort of catch up.
I think you know, the thing is that the whole mindset needs to change towards adapting to the newer normals of business, both in terms of technology, in terms of digitization, in terms of, you know, so that you are able to plug into the world. Because that probably, in my opinion, will become, let's say, the minimum standards available that you have to invite to be able to attract foreign customers or partners.
I would prefer to attract both foreign customers as well.
Absolutely. So rightly said.
And one thing we have seen is while there's been a lot more focus on the B2C side, the consumer side of digitalization, it hasn't translated that much into the MSME angle where it's largely B2B component.
Yeah.
Especially on the lower 60 percentile of the SMEs. And we also believe it's also the large degree of options they have. They don't have competency or capability to assess what's right for them. And then that confusion almost drives, if I can't touch, feel, or get confidence in it, then I'm better off where I am, which is not the right thing for them, to the point that Vinodji was making.
You're absolutely right, Sirji. The thing is that when we talk of this, we also need to talk in terms of taking the clusters or taking the the sectors in MSMEs which have the potential, and then get the people together. I think when we talk of holistically of getting every MSME and getting that thing, it will never happen. It's very difficult because there is this issue of knowing the, it's a psychological issue on specifically knowing the partners that you're going to work with, governmental issues in terms of what are the policies and how they see it. But if you talk of a sector in the MSMEs which are doing well and get them together to understand what is the future that lies for them and get the partners together, it might work and probably will work, in my opinion.
If I have your permission, Mr. Somani, can I begin with the session? Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very warm welcome to each one of you to the last day of the Indo-Pacific Business Summit, organized by the Economic Diplomacy Division of the Ministry of External Affairs and the Confederation of Indian Industry. Our session now is on creating a seamless ecosystem for MSMEs in the global value chain. To begin the session, I'd like to invite upon Mr. Shrikant Somani, Chairman, CII National MSME Council and CMD Somani Ceramics Limited, to welcome everybody, set the context, and take the session forward. Over to you, Mr. Somani.
Thank you, Anita. Excellencies, esteemed panelists, colleagues, friends, a very good afternoon to you and a warm welcome. I would also like to extend my welcome to the panelists today who have joined from far and wide: Germany, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and of course, our country, India. So as discussing earlier, we've all come together to actually see on this platform to see how creating a seamless ecosystem for the MSMEs in the global supply chain. Liberalization of trade and investments has generated new businesses and business opportunities for the MSMEs globally. The opportunities to be part of the global production through global value chain necessitates the need for MSMEs to upscale their businesses and the business models to access global markets. Enhancing MSME competitiveness, creating more jobs, and promoting inclusive growth requires integration of SMEs into the global supply chain. Our session today will help us to understand the importance of integration and build resilience in the new normal. SME sector, as we all know, is the fuel for economies of the world and is often addressed as the growth engine of economy. The MSMEs in India have always played a vital role in the Indian economy. Not only did the 63 odd million MSMEs which are present in India contribute to a third of the GDP of this country, but they also provide employment to approximately 120 million people, particularly the non-formal sector. The prevalent COVID-19 scenario has toppled almost all expectations since the beginning of 2020. Beyond the loss of life and the fear caused by the pandemic, businesses around the world have faced disruptions at a speed and scale unprecedented in the modern era. There has been substantive support from governments across the globe for the MSMEs, and now the industry needs to see the plethora of opportunities that the pandemic has opened for the sector. SMEs, as the driving engines of the economies, need to change their mindsets towards intensifying and focusing on the key aspects of what I would call as the DEQ, that is digitization or acceptance of new digital norms, efficiency and quality in their respective work processes in order to be globally competitive and accepted worldwide for global partnership. This being the context for today, considering the strength and potential of the global SMEs, I would take this opportunity to request the panelists who have agreed to join from different countries on this virtual platform to shed some light with their views and how they see a seamless integration of SMEs in the global supply chain and the value chain. So before I move forward, I would like to request the panelists to limit themselves to between 6 and 7 minutes for their comments. I will be asking questions. And of course, I have a couple of questions, so we'll start from the first. If we have time, we'll go to the second question. Otherwise, time remaining, we'll proceed further. So to start with, I would like to open my discussion with Dr. Hans-Jürgen Holz from Germany. Let me introduce him to you. Dr. Hans-Jürgen Holz heads the Economics and Politics Department of the Association of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, BVMW, or in short, the German Mittelstand. Before that, he served as Director General of the Employers Association of the State of Schleswig-Holstein and a Senior Economic Advisor of the Confederation of German Employers Association in Berlin. In that function, he frequently represented employers' position in the ILO, OECD, and the EU Commission. Dr. Holz, we all know that the Mittelstand companies are extremely important and a value add to the German economy. And in that aspect, I would like you to tell us something about how the SME sector, in terms of growth potential, vis-a-vis the challenges that they face while integrating with the global value chain. What do you think are the problems? Dr. Holz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Somani. First of all, let me express my gratitude to the organizers of this panel discussion, especially to the Confederation of Indian Industry, you, Mr. Somani, all panelists, and the audience. Also, I would like to express my gratitude for the Confederation's contribution to German-Indian Mittelstand relationships. During our cooperation, CII has proven itself as a perfect partner. Together, by joining our efforts, we are facilitating German-Indian economic cooperation and opening the door for new opportunities for our SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly micro, small and medium-sized enterprises need support to prosper and to continue to be the integral part of the world economy. MSMEs are continuously confronted with never-ending challenges. Deteriorating conditions for doing business, such as administrative burdens, the lack of representations in politics, disadvantages, legislation, limited financing, and overly bureaucratic procurement procedures, all these aspects must be corrected in favor of MSMEs. In addition, MSMEs must get full-fledged assistance in the new era of fourth industrial revolution and digitalization through financial support and specifically designed programs and projects for learning new competences. As BVMW, we already started 5 years ago with a project called, in German, Gemeinsam Digital, that translates to English, Together Digital, supported by the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. In collaboration with the Technical University of Berlin, we run a competence center for the digitalization of SMEs. Especially since 2016, we reached out to approximately 50,000 participating companies, assisting them in finding their own digitalization strategies. This is quite a success story all over Germany. Another aspect I would like to stress is as follows. Investing in small and medium-sized companies now means ensuring that millions of companies are given the opportunity to push ahead with digitalization. Launch new products, services, and processes, conquer new markets, and win new customers and partners, as you mentioned before, Mr. Somani. With a little help from the outside, medium-sized companies will turn creative ideas into successful business models in the shortest time possible. Ladies and gentlemen, digitalization, decarbonization, fundamental technological changes, and many other novelties that 21st century brought us are crucial aspects of our time. Consequently, each firm, even a small one, has to adapt to this new reality in order to be competitive and have good chances in the future. SMEs do have strong partners on their side, which are able to assist them to be fit for this new reality. These partners are SMEs, associations, and confederations, such as BVMW in Germany, or European entrepreneurs in Brussels. We are both well aware about current demands of the economy. We have knowledge about existing programs. We facilitate digitalization and innovation as SMEs. We are informed about the existing grants of the governments and can help through burdensome application processes. And finally, we are the voice of SMEs regarding all problems they might confront in transformation process. So it is very important that SMEs make use of this opportunity and work together with other SMEs associations locally as well as globally. That's exactly what we are doing right now. And I hope that was going to be a fruitful discussion, and maybe there's 1 or 2 questions we can answer at the end of our panel discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish us all a good discussion.
I would say that most of the time MSMEs work hard, but they also get subjected to the various policies of the government, which it becomes very difficult. And the governments have to come across to make things easy for them. So what are the best practices and policies that your government is implementing for SMEs to help them sail through the pandemic, this pandemic?
I have to admit, the best policy is doing nothing. No bureaucratic procurement procedures, reducing taxes and the tax wedge is a comparison for us, of all of us, and shows that the importance and and how international economic decisions are made. And we think that low taxes and a low degree of bureaucratic procedures are the main decision-making processes we can also affect. For us in Germany and the European Union as a whole, the less, the better it is.
Thank you very much. So
that does not necessarily imply that we need programs that enables us to be successful all over the world. SMEs, and especially in Germany, are very demanding, and they are very successful in doing what they are doing since centuries ago. And the best thing to do for a government is, as well as the federal level, as the state level, is to let them do what they do and don't intervene with them.
thank you very much. I believe so. So leave them alone to do what they do best. So let me turn to Mr. Chen Yong Leng from Malaysia. Malaysia, of course, as we know, is a great place for small and medium industries. Mr. Leng is the CEO of the top MEC SDM PhD, and is a practicing professional engineer with an honors degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Malaya. He has over 21 years of experience in the crane manufacturing and machinery distribution industry. He is a member of the Federation of the Malayan Manufacturing and chairman of the SME Youth and Entrepreneurship Committee of the SYEC Malaysia. So, as we see that most of these SMEs look towards an easy way of doing business. They don't want to be hassled on various laws and various things that the government keeps putting in. And one of the things that India has been trying to do and is also implementing for the last 2 years is the ease of doing business. And we want to see that industries really don't have to face things which should be done automatically and their ease. And so we'd like to know, what are the changes happening in terms of the ease of doing business for the SMEs in your country? Mr. Leng, you're muted, sir. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I can start. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Somani. Very good afternoon, business leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Somani, for the questions. But before I answer the questions, maybe I will just share some insights on the current business situation, especially in Malaysia, and also on some of the efforts that Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, FMM, are doing in that respect. So before that, I would like to record our sincere gratitude. Thank you to the Confederation of Indian Industry for the opportunity to share FMM's views at the Indo-Pacific Business Summit on creating a seamless ecosystem for MSMEs in the global value chain. To start off, please allow me to share with you on the current business condition, especially for SMEs in Malaysia. The COVID-19 pandemic, as everyone knows, and as what we discussed earlier, has a major impact on the global economy, trade, investment, supply chain, etc. At a firm level, businesses are forced to review the way they operate and reach out to the markets. The pandemic has been devastating for MSMEs when business sustainability is severely constrained by the lack of resources, especially in internal resources. Skills to adapt and adopt technologies quickly, and severe reduction in revenue because of lockdowns and loss of markets due to inability to deliver. So in the latest World Bank Malaysia Economic Monitor report, which was released in June recently, Malaysian SMEs have less cash flow than their peers, for example, in Indonesia and Vietnam. On the average, our firms have only 4.9 months of cash flow. In addition, 60% are either in arrears or at risk of falling into arrears in the next 6 months. So firms are less willing to borrow due to fear of repayment risk, and sellers are less willing to provide credit. So the World Bank has said the COVID-19 crisis has exposed a long outstanding long-standing structural weakness of Malaysian SMEs in terms of output and productivity. Well, FMM, through our survey on the impact of full movement control order in Malaysia, that is our version of lockdown. We call it the movement control order, or the MCO. So we conduct surveys, and 72% of our respondents are SMEs. So they revealed that 74% of the firms are rescheduling their loans, and 72% of these firms, again, are SMEs. The companies express concern over high gearing ratio, repayment risks, and the impact of rescheduling and restructuring loans, which will have on the terms of future financing. So Malaysia's movement control order restricted the types of industries and supply chains which are allowed to operate. And those given approval can only operate at 60% workforce at the moment, and production lines producing for essential products only. So 90% of our respondents reported a reduction in domestic and export sales, so mainly by 5 to 20% in the case of exports. 48% experienced backlog in export and 51% in local sales shipments. So you can see from here the impact of COVID on the overall business condition in Malaysia. So next, please allow me to share with you on a regional collaborative business platform that is driven by FMM, which is called the ASEAN Manufacturing Network, or in short, AMN. So clearly, businesses will need to be able to operate in order to recover the markets. For SMEs in the manufacturing sector, which accounts for 5.3% of the overall 907,000 SMEs in the country, we have rather relatively a large number of SMEs as compared to other countries regionally. So recovery and rebuilding the supply chain will also need to incorporate the use of new technologies in market outreach, innovation in product and business processes, and if necessary, diversification into new business activities. In the wake of disruption to supply chain brought on by the COVID-19, FMM took the lead to propose to its peers in ASEAN, in the Southeast Asian countries, to form the ASEAN Manufacturing Network, AMN, as part of the efforts to ensure uninterrupted supply of manufactured goods at national and regional levels. So the AMN is a networking platform for manufacturing-related organizations to communicate and collaborate on strategies to restructure regional production networks. So the AMN also promotes greater integration within the region to look at nearshore options to shorten supply chains and increase proximity to customers. So these are the objectives of the AMN. So concurrently, FMM, as a leading trade association in Malaysia, has signed MOU with many foreign chambers of commerce and association as a platform to promote trade and exchange of relevant information. As of June this year, FMM has signed 54 MOUs with 37 overseas bodies. So FMM is a strong advocate of regional and bilateral trade agreements to open up business opportunities for Malaysian SMEs to be part of the global value chain. So key conclusion is that FMM strongly believes that building business networks at association level, at trade association level, can contribute towards enhancing trade and investment collaboration and facilitation to access and strengthen the participation of Malaysian SMEs in the global value chain. We believe that collaborative business platforms can be a suitable launching pads into the global value chain, including for MSMEs, either indirectly as suppliers to support larger companies and MNCs, and even directly, especially for innovative SMEs with marketable technologies and innovation. So finally, I would like to share or touch on the topic of open global standards for product identification. FMM also believes that the global supply chain should enhance supply chain data visibility, transparency, accuracy, and confidence through a trusted standard-based information, a data system that allow open and efficient sharing of product and supply data with the supply chain stakeholders. In this respect, FMM, through its participation with the GS1, is strongly of the view that the GS1 system, which covers the item numbering, barcoding, and electronic communication in trade and services, and in use of in more than 150 countries worldwide, will facilitate and enable such data sharing with accuracy, and integrity. So on that note, I would like to once again express my sincere gratitude to the Confederation of Indian Industry for having me today and be part of this momentous event. Thank you. And shall I answer to your questions, Mr. Somani?
I'll come back to you. Surely.
Sorry?
I will come back to you once again.
Sure.
For the time being, I'd like to move to my colleague Mr. Vinod Sharma is a successful entrepreneur, has spent 20 passionate years in shaping Deki Electronics Limited into a world-class film capacitor manufacturer. The company has also diversified as a solution provider in segments of electric vehicle charging equipment and as a supply chain partner to the mobile phone manufacturers. He plays a very active role in the electronics community in India and is currently the chairman of the CII National Committee for the ICTE. Vinod, India is eyeing at a $10 trillion economy, and it is only possible by extensive participation of the MSMEs in manufacturing, and India being a global sourcing hub. How do you see this actually happening? And one more thing you can perhaps build into this is that when we talk of a $10 trillion economy and the MSMEs moving into the global supply chain, I think one of the most important things is that the MSMEs have to become globally competitive. I would like to have your views on these two matters, on how the $10 trillion economy, how the MSMEs can be a part and an important aspect of the $10 trillion economy, and how do we play a role in the global supply chain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Somani, for having me on this August panel. Very warm greetings to everybody on the panel and to the audience. So you asked me a very pertinent question, but before I get there, I always ask myself a question: why MSMEs? Because the business doesn't really care whether what they want as a product or service comes from large companies, multinationals, or small companies spread out in the many countries that are represented today. And the answer for that, at least in my personal opinion, is that MSMEs deliver far more value in terms of efficiency of manufacturing or producing a service or providing a service, far more taxes than any other way of doing business. And most importantly, they create far more jobs for the same amount of capital that is given to any other organization. And hence, MSMEs are not only important to the large organizations who we try to serve, they are also very important for nation building. And every single country represented here today would agree that the MSMEs hence play a very integral, pertinent role in the growth of nations. Unfortunately, when we actually come to business, as was pointed out by a colleague from Germany and Malaysia, they get the short end of the stick. We are not treated fairly, but I'll come to that later. The more important question is the second one that you asked me, because our only ticket to survival is to be globally competitive. It used to be locally competitive, but as tariffs have been flattened, as we live in a flatter world today, we do realize that we have no existence no reason to exist except to be globally competitive. And I would divide that global competitiveness into two phases. One is how competitive am I within the factory gates, within the premises of my business. And there I couldn't think of anything better than the acronym that you started with, the DEQ, except that I would put it the other way around and say QE2, QED, because if I don't have quality, I don't exist. So that is required, and that benchmark keeps shifting as we get global. The efficiency is required, otherwise, obviously, I will have no customers. And most importantly, today, the latest tool that we have to make sure that these two are sustainably achieved, both quality and efficiency, is digitization. So within factory gates and best practices from each other,
And in a forum like this, I would say one of our action points should be, can we create a platform where MSMEs, and specifically the middle companies, because quite frankly, micro and small companies don't engage so much beyond their local areas. So if you look at a global aggregation, a global coming together for best practices, learning from each other, joining hands, scaling up together, and maybe even buying into each other's companies, or becoming global value chain partners for each other. So there is a lot that we can do when we come together as medium-sized companies across the globe. The second one is more important, and this is actually forms a part of a book that I wrote along with my colleague Hans in Holland, called Value Magics. Value Magics dealt with the magic of creating value at the firm level. And the second part of the book, Valuenomics, which is being written now, deals with creating the same competitiveness at not the enterprise level, but now at the ecosystem level. And that ecosystem, we use a very simple model of 3 concentric spheres. So if you look at the innermost core of this whole global competitiveness is, of course, in the actors. And these actors are MSMEs like myself who make a component, but also my suppliers who bring me the raw material, and my customers who buy those components from me and make a product, in this case, an electronic products. The interplay between these 3 layers within these actors is an extremely important part of the competitiveness mathematics, if I may call it, the equation. And let's give this a value X for a minute. But it is not enough that, for example, the large buyers from these MSMEs understand the importance of these smaller players. They pay them their money on time, for example, something which we would normally think is absolutely normal. But if you ask most MSMEs across the world, their number 1 problem would be not getting money on time. Their probably number 2 problem would be not having enough access to markets globally. And number 3, maybe not access to technology, or not being able to buy that. We talked about digitization, for example. The truth is, large companies have talent which is internal to them, which can think about the whole digitization process seamlessly. Small companies or medium companies might be able to pay for it, but they don't have the internal change agents that are required, which can take them on this very, obviously it's a nervous thing when you take on a huge journey like digitization. But having said that, so there is a lot of play that the actors have. Outside the sphere, I would say, is a second sphere, what I would call the enablers, the why, and these are people which are the institutional mechanism, the business support organizations like our own, CII, for example, and many other organizations that are represented on the panel today. We play a very important role in supporting these actors to be able to achieve the best efficiency they do. And let's give it a mathematical formula, number Y, for example. And finally, on the outside of this whole core, I would say Z or Z, and these are the drivers. These are the government mechanisms, the regulators, the policy makers, and the infrastructure providers. Now, like I said, this finance problem, if the driver at the policy level had a very simple policy and a legal mechanism through the country that makes sure that people are paid on time, or people who don't pay them on time are punished. If just that simple infrastructure legally was available, a lot of these problems would get solved. So we put the competitiveness formula as C is equal to X cube into Y square into Z. And why? Because the actors will still play even in the same ecosystem, some of us will do better than the others because, our firm level competitiveness is much more. But do remember that we have deliberately put this as a product formula, because if even one of these is 0, then the entire competitiveness of that sector or that enterprise, that ecosystem will collapse to 0. And hence, to answer a very simple question you asked about what ensures global competitiveness, in my personal opinion, it is the interplay between these actors, enablers and drivers on a sustainable way. So dialogue is the only answer, dialogue with our governments, dialogue with each other, and hence embarking on the journey that will hopefully help us to get globally competitive, more efficient, and hence find our place under the sun, saying, please support MSMEs, because MSMEs actually support the society in a far more effective and efficient manner than any other organization can. I will stop with that, and thank you for asking me the question.
Thank you, Vinod. And you flagged 2 things which I would say that were also, Mr. Leng also mentioned that, you have mentioned it, and probably that it is important that while governments may do or associations may do a lot, but there is always a resource constraint which the MSMEs face. And so I would now in this context of how we can do, let me turn my question to Dr. Vinam Khan Kosumas. Professor Dr. Kosumas is the Deputy Director General from the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises Promotion in Thailand. She served as a speaker of the Customer Protection Law Revision Committee of the National Legislative Assembly of Thailand in 2016, and was the chair of associations of South Asian nations, small and medium industries, working group in 2015, and the chair of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation SME working group in 2013 and 14. Madam, I think the two speakers have actually flagged similar issues, although I believe that the FMM is doing a great job in trying to ease the solemn situation for the MSMEs. But when we talk of the global marketplace, the integration of SMEs into the global marketplace, I think MSMEs need, one, ease of doing business, two, availability of resource, specifically as far as finance is concerned. So my question to you would be, what are the changes? Because I see when we go to Thailand and we see the amount of SMEs that are the small and medium businesses which we do and we visit them, what are the kind of changes happening in the terms of ease of doing business for MSMEs in your country, the cluster policy and the export financing? I think, as I see the SMEs from Thailand export a lot. Of course, India does just about 40% of the Indian GDP. India also does, but then we're talking of Thailand. There's a huge potential, and they're already doing it. So, what, in your opinion, to the three things that I've asked, is your perception? You're muted, ma'am. You're muted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Somani. And on behalf of Office of SMEs Promotion of Thailand, we would like to express our appreciation to the Confederation of Indian Industries for allowing us to participate in this very important forum. Let me start by informing you that in Thailand, we have 3.1 million SMEs. And although we, like you say, we are exporting a lot, but the firms that are able to export or engage in a global value chain, which registered as an exporter, we only have about 20,000 firms. This doesn't include those who are engaged in border trade. So the number is still too small. And majority of MSMEs still facing like obstacles in integrating to global value chain, access to finance too limited, and then they cannot comply to standards, global standards, and also the mindset. There is a limitation in the mindset, which I would explain later. And then we have this COVID situation, which we found that everything that we need to come up to help SME must be practical. So during this period of COVID, we have 4 measures coming out to help SME. In the area of access to finance, the Bank of Thailand has introduced the so-called digital factoring ecosystem to assist SME exporters. In the past, factoring has always been an important tool to help exporters, but the use of factoring has not been widespread among MSMEs who are not first-tier suppliers to large corporate buyers, because factors are concerned about counterfeiting of commercial documents, and they're afraid that MSMEs may apply duplicate loans or double financing using the same invoice. to apply for loans from many factoring operators. So the result is the factors or banks just don't lend to MSMEs because they don't trust the documents. So the digital factoring ecosystem is the system where the Bank of Thailand come up with a central database for the documents. They verify, they make sure that documents that are used will not be used in duplication by MSMEs. So this particular measure has got a lot of support and praise from MSMEs in the system right now. So it was very successful move by the government. The second area that we start to see is standard and compliance. Global supply chain, global value chain is moving towards BCG, bioeconomy, circular economy, and green economy. And for SME exporters and manufacturers, they urgently need BCG supply chain within the country. They need raw materials, they need like tier 1, tier 2s to become, to have BCG adoption. So the government has announced that our next national social and economic development plan, the focus of this plan would be on BCG adoption in all areas. And then for OSMEP, we are a third level of national plan because it's just like one sector of the economy. But the same, we are in the process of launching our 5th master plan for SME development, which covers 5 years. So we make it clear in our plan that the focus of SME development in Thailand would be BCG adoption together with digitalization, of course. So this is a way to send a very strong message to all MSMEs across the country that this is urgent, they need to do it, and then send very strong signals to incubators, to R&D institutions that they must start BCG R&Ds and adoption. The third very important area that we found out even before the COVID situation is the mindset. We have come up with research, our own research on Bond Global. The Bond Global firms are organizations that view the world as its marketplace and achieve significant levels of foreign sales within early stage of its inception, only 3 years. We have started to see rapid internationalization of the startups. But we would see 99.99% of SMEs do not have that mindset that they can become Bond Global or they can do rapid internationalization. So we dig into detail the character of the Bond Global, and we found that majority of Bond Global, they didn't get into global supply chain through attending trade expo. They integrate into global supply chain through networking, through going to pitching, to getting some innovation award, through a gathering of a global cluster abroad. And we have so many other characters of this Bond Global. So we have a training right now to get MSMEs to be exposed to this concept of Bond Global, because to become Bond Global, they have to change several of their business models. Like the previous models, manufacturers do have big international department, marketing department to handle their market. But the Bond Global is just one person, it's the CEO of the company who network abroad by himself and use his charisma or characteristics to become a Bond Global firm. Okay, so that's the third area that we are doing. And the final area is we have found that across the world, MNCs, 4,000 large companies are being rounded up by the United Nations under the project We Empower. So these 4,000 large companies are setting aside their corporate procurement for women entrepreneurs who are SMEs. But even like for Thailand, we were not prepared for that. We have not collect sex aggregate data for our MSMEs in order for our women entrepreneurs to access these 4,000 MNCs. They have to prove that they are women entrepreneurs, or the firms must be women-owned entrepreneurs. So they have standards like 50% of the share should be owned by women, or 50% of board members of the firm must be women. And this, they need verification. And so OSMEP is in the process of coming up with the database. And we help verify that these are women-owned MSMEs. And then we help matching them. We start with one company right now, which set aside 40 million euro to buy from women entrepreneurs who are MSMEs. So this is the beginning, and we have another 4,000 companies across the world. And this is set aside for Thailand only, 50 million euro for Thailand only. So I think these 4 areas of our efforts should fit into the next normal economy. So just want to share this with you, and I really enjoy hearing from all of you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suman. I must say it is very encouraging to hear that Thailand is looking at developing women entrepreneurs, and the way you said, similar things are happening in India as well. But I think it's heartening to know that you're going ahead and the amount of money which is coming in. Also, the fact that you've taken, Thailand has taken upon itself to actually make the MSMEs future ready in terms of getting out and integrating into the world with a born global attitude and the mindset. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, let me turn to Mr. Suresh Jain from Singapore. Suresh is a program director of Proxtera, an innovative fintech startup based in Singapore. Proxtera is an ecosystem of B2B platforms, financial services, and fulfillment providers committed to improving trade outcomes for small and medium enterprises. Suresh has been part of Proxtera from its inception. He has deep experience in payments and transaction banking with a 20-year career covering India, Australia, South Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Suresh, you know, Singapore is an island of excellence. And I think it supports, in its own way, MSMEs across the globe. I would like to know from you what you think are the untapped opportunities MSMEs can take advantage today to scale their businesses domestically and internationally. And of course, while doing so, it is also as important as that B2B marketplaces have to be developed to help the MSMEs to sell their source better. So I would like to have your perception of this. Sirish.
Thank you, Mr. Samani, for that warm welcome. And it's an absolute honor to be here on this panel today. A very warm good afternoon from the little red dot, the island that Singapore is, to all my panelists and ladies and gentlemen on this call. Perhaps the question itself is the genesis of Proxtera, if I may. Proxera as a concept, we came into it pre-COVID. 2018 is when we started working on it. But we saw under the auspices of MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the other regulator, IMDA, which is the Infocom Media Development Authority, that there is going to be a challenge in the broadly increasingly digital world, which is likely to leave our MSMEs behind. MSMEs in any well-functioning economy contribute to the most significant amount of GDP and almost 60, 70, or 80% of the employment. It is the cornerstone engine house. And it was our belief that we must take them together into the digital future that we all are walking into. Come COVID last year, we found ourselves accelerated, and in a way, we were in the future digital world with different forms of lockdown, MCOs, and everything else happening elsewhere. Now, Proxera is its purpose, as its name suggests, it's about bringing people together, MSMEs together. We are a network intermediary that connects B2B marketplaces, service providers in both financial services and non-financial services to meet the needs of MSME. What are the needs of an MSME? And by extension, I will help answer the question that was raised to me about what are the untapped opportunities for MSMEs, both domestically and internationally. Now, when we do look at opportunities for MSME, we also took into account the biggest hurdles that also present to them. The opportunity or question of survival for any MSME relies upon what is the new market or existing business I can bring for my organization? And second is, how can I efficiently service that business or trade or a contract? And third is, how can I retain liquidity of my organization so that I can continue to service more and the business I acquired is contributing to the future growth? These are the things that Proxera enables. At the same time, there are some key barriers. If we take a step back, MSMEs historically has been around, I will work with the people that I know, that are my customers within my known area, and I will source from the suppliers that I know. Now, taking that physical angle away and putting that into a digital world where they suddenly find themselves in a very challenging scenario. My customer is someone who I don't know, and my supplier potentially is someone who I don't know. That trust deficit is a major barrier. Compounded by the distance of cross-border does not help solve it. And then it starts to create the doubt, if I go down this path, will I succeed? So even before an MSME starts to get digital, they start to doubt the successful outcome of it. And that is not a helpful loop. And that's what Proxera is trying to overcome by instilling trust in the ecosystem that we connect at a domestic and a cross-border basis. Now, from a SME perspective, the big untapped opportunity is you can serve needs beyond your immediate domain of influence, the local people you know. That can be both within your country as well as cross-border opportunities. You can source better, and better can be in terms of quality or outcome, or better can be in terms of price or speed. And similarly, you can find new customers in different places without having to leave your preferred environment or the marketplace you operate. The first step an MSME needs to access that untapped opportunity is also another big barrier for them. That is, which B2B marketplace should I connect with? That optionality also brings in a lot of complexity in the process. And like Vinodji noted, quite often it is about not having the understanding or homegrown capability to understand which platform should I connect to. Now, the benefit of Proxera, the way we are solving it is, you don't need to connect with multiple platforms. As long as the platform you connect to is connected with Proxera. And by the way, today, Proxera is already live in 7 countries in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, including India. And more countries are coming along. If your platform is already connected to Proxera, then as our network grows, it automatically grows your reach to both source better and serve better. From a financing perspective, and I was quite humbled when Wim Konnen mentioned about the risk of financing, double financing of invoices, counterfeit documents. That risk amplifies the moment you go cross-border. And we are working with our innovative partners to find solutions that work for SMEs and MSMEs. Today, I can take an example. While there are global logistics and shipping solutions available, they typically work on the basis of a container or a pallet. When you take that thing down to a MSME, they often do not deal at the scale of a pallet or a container. So we are working with, again, service providers to bring solutions that are digitally available to the MSMEs so that they can better tap those opportunities. And in that regard, Mr. Somani, it's while there are a number of untapped opportunities, there's also a number of gaps available for MSMEs to tap and bridge those opportunities. And that's where Proxera is trying to do to help them along. And in that regard, we are constantly working with B2B marketplaces, whether they are pure marketplaces, buy-side oriented, sell-side oriented, or specialist providers, to bring more vibrancy in our ecosystem and network so that an MSME is almost never need to worry about, for this capability, do I need to look for another marketplace? I can continue to use the single pane of glass of my most favorite marketplace I like and use the word that is brought to me, powered by Proxera, to that marketplace.
Good. Thank you, Srinji. I think you made some very important points. One of that was that the MSMEs, by and large, are happy working in a comforting atmosphere or the ecosystem that they belong to, and they do not want to stretch themselves. I think this is one of the key things that one needs to work on, is to make the mindset of stretching beyond their comfort levels. And that of course, you know best, and I'm happy that Proxera is doing that. And the other thing that we also face in terms of when we go back to the SMEs to try and get them into the digital fold and various handhold them to take the technologies, one of the things that we also fear, as you mentioned, the fear and suspicion of the new technology that they're going to imbibe. It's a big barrier to cross. But then I think it is important that as organizations, we need to continue to work on this aspect, because we have to build this whole system for the MSMEs. Thank you very much once again for those thoughts. Our next panelist also is from India, Mr. Gautam Kapoor. Mr. Kapoor is the co-founder and chief operating officer of ShipRocket, a leading tech-driven logistics aggregation platform with global reach. Gautam is at the helm of running logistics execution, operations, and end-to-end strategies, and he helps define the culture and vision of the company. Gautam's entrepreneurial journey began as co-founding Cart Rockets. So there's a commonality between the two rockets you have, the cart and the ship. So we need to see that going skyrockets. So my question to you, Gautam, is how do you think technology and the big data will ensure better supply chain management in the new normal and enable faster growth and seamless integration within the global value chain for the MSMEs? Gautam.
Thank you, Mr. Somani. Thanks for all the panelists as well. It's a panel that's worthy listening to. I think every point that has been put out is great, and me running a startup from India, supporting 75,000 MSMEs and SMEs in India, hearing all these things from a global perspective is very, very important. What I'll do is I'll try and take a different side of the MSMEs over here. And I focus on a particular segment which can benefit from the global e-commerce and direct to consumer wave which the entire world is going through, including India. So if we talk about India, right, and what India largely exports to other markets and sells directly to consumers, the consumer products, you will find a lot of jewelry, you will find a lot of clothing garments, you will have products which are around health and beauty, books, manufacturing, business office supplies, all those things. And on most of this, everything actually is actually manufactured by MSMEs today. What we have seen, what I've seen in my decade-old experience of running this company from, and CartRocket, ShipRocket are part of the same company. We started as CartRocket, now we are ShipRocket. So what I've seen is mostly, and I've seen a lot of successful MSMEs transposing themselves from only being manufacturers and deploying their manufacturing capabilities for somebody else to trade or inject whatever they manufacture into exporters who export it further on, or distributors who sell it domestically, etc. They have started selling these products directly. They have emerged as brands or emerged as direct to consumer brands, and that has been a lot of success. And just to name a few, and these customers work with us. I know of this garment manufacturer who manufactures mostly for all leading brands globally. He created a brand called Oxoloxo, and it's a global brand right now. It's selling through all major marketplaces. There's a company called Vadam Teas, right? It's an MSME who was in the space, who was supplying tea to other tea brands across in India. Now he has a brand which is globally available, right? There's a brand called P Safe, which is a very innovative brand, which is around hygiene around using toilets, etc. Has an amazing market outside. So you have seen interesting global businesses now emerging from these MSMEs. These were just manufacturers or second generation businesses, third generation businesses, and they have changed and they've become so successful. This one brand I work with is called Wow Cosmetics. It's based out of somewhere in Punjab, in the northern part of the country in India, and they have a heavy usage of their product in Northern America. I think it's close to about $20-30 million now, and that's the kind of business that they do. Now, what ShipRocket particularly tries to do is aggregate the demand on one side and aggregate the supply chain on the other. Those are two problems that I will try and solve, right, as a company. Quite interestingly, buying is, with the whole pandemic, obviously the buying has all moved online. Consumers are buying products online. Businesses are transposing from becoming traditional trading or manufacturing for other companies, now creating products directly for the consumers. So in that space, what I need to do is I need to aggregate the demand through these consumers globally who are looking for. There are some customers who are looking for Indian products. There are customers who are looking for otherwise products which are global in any ways, any nature, and their brands are global already. And they are these marketplaces out of Southeast Asia, out of MENA, out of Northern America, Europe. All these marketplaces have cropped up across, and these are consumer marketplaces, not B2B marketplaces. Sorry, Shrish. These are consumer marketplaces. And together, having them all under one platform, having one system which is holding all your inventory and telling all these global marketplaces that this is the inventory we have. And when an order comes through, dispatching this order using different small packet courier companies or India Post, for example, to get these shipments delivered to the consumer, it's a huge business. Hugely profitable as well, right? And look at the margins these people would make at the end of the day. And these are successful businesses. Few things that I wanted to touch upon, right? And this is a problem. I've been trying to see this market. We call it CBT, cross-border trade, in our language, where Indian businesses are selling across 2 different countries and are using the e-commerce route which India has put together. There are fundamental issues, right? If you're not able to sell something globally, getting those inventory back into India is an impossible task. Filing GST, claiming GST for exports, getting the benefits of exports, things around taxation itself is a problem. And our India Post being the most efficient mode of logistics for small parcel business across for these business is still very inefficient. There's so much innovation that can happen there in terms of better tracking, better experience for the person who's sending the parcel and the consumer who's buying the parcel. And some China has done a fantastic job by the way, and a large part of e-commerce is cross-border trade for them. And it's end of the MSMEs who are selling these goods, manufacturing or trading. So I just wanted to touch upon what I see the opportunity as, what success stories I've seen already in the business, and what I think this could transpose in. Now, getting these brands to have that motivation to go and sell. I think we have the platform. Putting the motivation together, we are in this for the long haul. Frankly, it's going to take time. We have seen a lot. We've worked with so many sellers. We work 75,000 sellers today every month. In India, our gross merchandise value that is sold through our platform is close to about $2 billion. And if you think about it from an Amazon, Flipkart perspective, we'll be like third or fourth largest if you talk about it in India. So we are obviously making a difference for MSMEs in India. How well we can do it globally is still to be seen. Pandemic has been there's always I think there's a silver lining for all of us there, some way or the other. How unfortunate as an event it was, but what it made was it created these MSMEs changed their businesses from being businesses who were selling to other businesses from selling to now consumers directly. Big success stories all across. Take it from a person who is a one-person company to people who are 500 people companies also. So that's where I will stop. I hope I've not overshot my time. Mr. Somani.
Well within the time, Gautam, and I have to say that you flagged two very important issues. One is that while we are talking of logistics, there are issues which pertain to government policies. When you say return of goods, GST, and all such things, these are issues which again fall in the category of ease of doing business. And I think that those are things. The other thing that you've said, and as I read from your message, is that today the success of any MSMEs is to understand that it is the importance of delivered yesterday. And that's how we can actually do this, get competitive and get into the market. I completely agree with you there. So let me turn to Mr. Lee Chul-jung. Mr. Jung joined the Korea International Trade Association, KITA, in 1994. He previously served the Exhibition Convention Department, KITA Brussels Center, Eurasia Cooperation Department before coming to KITA, New Delhi. So you're here, and I have to tell you that Korea is a small country it is envious to see how this country is developed, both in terms of capital growth, both in terms of consumer products, electronic consumer durables. And obviously there is a huge amount of MSMEs across border, as Gautam had said, and within South Korea that you're seeing and developing. But I would like to know from you, as we move forward through the pandemic into the Pacific trade, the new norms of business and various the alignments which are taking place in trade, how do you see the MSME sector in decades from now, and what are the steps that can be taken for the sustainable growth? And how do we intermingle SMEs across globes to come together and work for a single purpose?
Well, thank you, Mr. Somani. It's a joy to see you safe and well, and it's a special privilege to speak on before the international colleagues who are interested in bringing up MSMEs. Now, thank you again for giving me an MSME question regarding time. Before talking about the present, I would like to go a few millenniums back, just to start off. I think Indian MSMEs should become like the ancient biblical character Joseph, a Hebrew shepherd who went to Egypt, started as a slave, becoming the highest official serving the Pharaoh, and eventually saving Egypt from a 7-year famine. Now, India's MSMEs should not be the game changers or play a pivotal role, but become the savior of India in the coming decades. with that, Koreans like to follow role models. Every now and then, we conduct a study to provide to our MSMEs about which direction to go and whom to follow. And in the year 2012, my company, Korea International Trade Association, gave me a word called Mittelstand. Now, everybody knows Mittelstand is a German word. So I was expecting that my company would send me to Germany to study Mittelstand. But no, they sent me to Denmark for some reason. So I went to Denmark twice to find out why the MSMEs or the Mittelstand of Denmark were so successful. And I studied about a dozen of companies, made interviews, visited them, and there were 6 bullet points. I think it's a very beneficial message, not just for MSMEs of Korea, but India as well. Now, let me just go over those 6 points. First, Danish MSMEs or Mittelstands, their employees had access to companies' leadership to convey their opinion. Now, relationship between employer and employee were horizontal and equal. Second, almost all employees spoke English very well, freely. Now, third, in Denmark, if you are an MSME, globalization is not an option. Export-driven manufacturing and becoming part of global value chain is a necessity. So you're born global, or born CBT in Indian terms. Fourth, there was no minimum wage or strong union activity. I can't go any deeper into this issue. Of course, there are measures to protect the employees and the companies, but there was no hassle over minimum wage or strong union activity prohibiting the company's operations. Fifth, MSMEs focus only on their specialty. Even when they're successful and financially capable, they didn't venture out to other areas. For instance, the Lego company sticks to Lego even today. Anton Berg, world famous chocolatier, only manufactured chocolates. Royal Copenhagen, I'm quite sure Mr. Somani is well aware of Royal Copenhagen, only makes ceramics. Bang & Olufsen only makes sound related devices. And finally, sixth, minimum intervention of the government. Minimum intervention. Now, Denmark organized a national campaign called Administrative Burden Reduction Program from year 2001 to 2010. And they were successful to rid 25% of red tapes in just 10 years. So Danish example could be applied not just to Korea, but for MSMEs that wants to be successful, including India. Now let's get back to reality. Now, since I am from Korea, let me talk about something about Korea that could be applied to India. There is an MSME crisis in Korea that you should monitor and prepare to yourselves too. Korea has been experiencing rapid reduction of birth rate and even more rapid aging society issues. It is taking toll on the MSMEs. Many are shutting down, not because of pandemic or just from difficulty with sourcing workers, but because number of population or consumers are decreasing as well. Now, India is not free from this risk, although it's one of the most populous countries in the world. Now, according to a January article in Hindustan Times, the 60 plus or 60 above population will triple by year 2050. It's not too far away from here, only 3 decades. This means MSMEs will have lesser advantage with labor pool consisting of younger and less skilled workers. Now, in order to lower the population and labor risk, the MSMEs need to shift tactics accordingly in the coming years. And I'm talking about Indian MSMEs. Now, for a little bit for future prosperity for Indian MSMEs. In order to prosper and succeed in global competition, my last point would be minimizing unpredictability in customs and tariff regime. The ease of doing business in customs field is important, especially for MSMEs seeking to be part of global value chain or born global or become competitive in the global market. Well, thank you very much for your attention. That'll be my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jung. I think you brought out very relevant points. And I can focus and I can relate to these. One is the policies which have to be sustained over a long period of time, and they cannot change, which gives the world a very important message. As far whether it is business of SMEs or whether it is any other business or partners coming in, I think this is very important. And the other thing that you mentioned is the relationship between the owner and the people who work. I think this is something which is here already. I don't see that as an issue, because I think the MSMEs here who work as a family. I think that is very important to understand if you go and see that. The third that you very importantly said is the language, which is common, that people understand, and the focus on what you do best. I think these are issues which immediately relate to what businesses and the SMEs in India as well. Thank you very much for giving us this thought process of yours. We have some time, and we can take a couple of questions. If there's anybody who would like to ask a question, please. I think there are no questions. So, yeah. Well, I would say that it's been a very illuminating discussion today. Different points of view that all of you have brought in, very valid, unique in their own ways, country-wide, specifically business-wise and policy-wise. And we've enjoyed this session. I have. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
Thank you, Mr. Somani, and thank you, CII.
Thank you very much. Goodbye from Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Somani, for having chaired it. Perfect timing, I must say. 3:45, and we are done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Falls.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.